hopefully the person you marry is having the exact same thought.
That's how it should be.
And so that really struck me. It struck a chord with me.
Welcome, everybody, to the Not For Nothing podcast, hosted by the dynamic duo Christopher Michael and Ashley Maland, where they delve into life, love, relationships, and personal growth. Be sure to tune in every week for a refreshing take on life's most important lessons.
So today we are joined with Adam Roa, artist, poet, life coach, and actually host of the newly released podcast, the Creative Path Podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, congratulations on the podcast, by the way, man.
Thank you. I don't know if it's any good yet. We haven't released it.
Well,
yeah, we know it will be.
I'm sure. I mean, if it's half as good as everything else you do, it's going to be amazing. So looking forward to it for sure.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're excited for the release of it.
Yeah, I did a podcast for many years called The Deep Dive for years and years and years. And it went through a lot of iterations. And this feels very exciting for me because it's a conversation that most people aren't having. So when you see all these amazing humans doing epic things in the world, I want to know about their creative process. Mm-hmm. I want to know how they think about creativity. I want to know how they built what they built through incorporating their own unique creativity to it. So it gives me an opportunity to find that stuff out.
Yeah. That's amazing. I know that stuff. And we'll get into that later into the episode. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm always curious about, especially with artists such as yourself, because the mindset you guys have to get into is, I just can't even imagine getting myself there sometimes. No, I'm serious. And I mean that as a credit to you.
Oh, yeah. I don't know either. That's the thing. So it's funny because you said we'll get into that later in the episode. I'm going, what are we doing later in the episode? How do you know what's going to happen in the episode? As an artist, I have no idea the poems come through me. That process is so transformative. I feel as if I'm being transformed as much as anything.
Yeah, well, for me, it's a lot easier. I just think of a question I really want to ask, and then I just write it down and I ask you. So the process is not quite what yours is, but yeah. So I know Ashley's been dying to ask you something.
I wanted to show a part of your poem. Is it a poem or spoken word? What would you call it? The sovereignty.
It's a spoken word poem. So my definition of that is, you know how there's some poems that are meant to live on a page.
Yes.
And then there are some poems that are meant to be performed.
Yes.
And so spoken word poetry is an art form for me where you take poetry and it is meant to be performed. It's meant to be spoken out. That's a huge part of what makes it special.
Okay. I love that. See, I never knew the difference, actually. So I learned something today, but I want to show a little bit of that one. It's one of my favorites. And if I cry, don't make fun of me. Every time I listen to it, I get teared up, and we can talk about why. But
all right, so I'm sure you know your own stuff, but I'm going to play it for you so you can watch it.
Love you. I mean, I think I do. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it must be love because I'd do anything for you. You are my everything. There's nothing of me left. So if you leave, would you believe there'd be no heart left in my chest? What do you mean unhealthy? I think it's romantic. Is it love or codependency? Let's not argue the semantics. Hey, No. This isn't a pattern. No, I checked in with my astrologer and he told me that the rings of Saturn were aligned just right on the night we met. And I went back and checked our history. It was 11/11 when I got that text from you saying that you loved me too. And I knew it was true because you put 3 heart emojis at the end, not just 2. So what's a guy to do? What is it that you want from me? No, I don't understand. What do you mean by sovereignty? Well, that's the journey that I'm on. Learning who I am now that you're gone. What do I do when my worldview no longer filters through the lens of you? Sovereignty. I get it now, I really do. I finally see that loving me is how I learn to love you.
Great, Paul.
I love you.
oh my God. Wow. I don't hardly ever get choked up by stuff like this, but it's just, sorry. Give me a second.
Don't apologize. I think it's important. Never apologize for how deeply you feel. It's really a blessing. Thank you.
I'm like shaking. I think the beautiful part about that is that so many people grow up not knowing how to love themselves because they had parents that didn't know how to love themselves. And codependency is the only thing you know, right? It's the only way you know how to connect with people. And when you don't have that love for yourself, the fear of people leaving your life is really deeply embedded in your soul, you know? And so when someone that you attach to does go away from your life, it is like a death, you know? At least in my experience, just like I love so deeply. And when I heard this, I was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. How do I know what codependency is versus what real love is? How do you distinguish between the two when you've never been modeled anything other than that, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on
Yeah.
that.
And I really appreciate how deeply you feel that piece. And I'll say that I wrote that piece after my 10-year relationship ended. I was in a 10-year relationship from 23 years old to 33 years old. And so
Wow.
I had developed into what I thought at the time was a man in relationship.
Right.
And so a lot of the identity structures that I had created for myself around my purpose, my passion, who I was as a man when I left the house and walked out into the world, all of it was within this bubble of safety created by a relationship that I believed was going to last forever. And so at 33 years old, when that relationship ended, I realized I actually don't know myself outside of that bubble. And I've never felt safe before that bubble. And so I'm back to not feeling safe. And I'm basically 40-year-old virgin. And I don't understand what to do. How do you even date in today's world? And all of these questions that I had to look at. And one of those big ones was, I remembered this moment of someone asking me about, hey, do you want to go do this? Let's just say it was go to this sexy party for Halloween or something.
Right.
And I instinctively looked over my shoulder, and it was just this moment of awareness that I was looking to energetically and literally check in with my ex about, hey, do you want to do this? Or is this okay? Or whatever. I was still filtering my lens of reality through this other person.
Yeah.
And that was really a crazy moment for me. And that's what kind of led to this poem being created, is this exploration of how do I find my way back to being sovereign as my own individual? And was I ever sovereign in the relationship if I don't feel sovereign now?
Right.
And so I guess where that led me to was realizing that I had never learned how to truly hold my own heart.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never really truly understood how to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, when I got into relationship, I basically said, hey, hold this for me, please. And then when that relationship ended, it was on the floor.
Right.
like it was on the floor, and I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And now what I've discovered for myself is, because I know how to care for myself, because I know how to love myself and take care of myself, when I enter into a relationship, I'm going to say, hey, will you hold this with me?
Oh, yeah.
But if you ever let go, I've still got it. It will
Yeah.
never hit the floor. And the difference between having someone hold your heart with you versus giving it to someone because you don't know how to is huge.
Yeah, that's so good. And I can honestly say, like, that's who I always was. I was always handing my heart to people, and it was getting crushed and broken and, betrayed and thrown and rejected and all of these things. And it was just an absolutely devastating blow every time because I hadn't learned how to, hold it for myself. Like you said, like I hadn't learned to keep a hold of it. Instead of just like offering it to someone as a sacrifice, like, okay, you have to be so gentle with my heart because I don't know how to take care of it when you're done, or when you decide you don't want it anymore. And I think that's a lot of people. I think so many people can relate to that and understand that and are still trying to learn, how do you do that? Like, what does that look like? How do you, and that's the journey I'm on right now, because I was in a 10-year marriage, and I realized too, all my relationships before that was always just like me sacrificing my heart and soul instead of like sharing it with someone. But how does someone listening to this right now go from that? Like, how do they pick it up off the floor, and where do they go with it once they have,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a misconception people have around self-love as if it's this thing that you have or don't.
Yeah.
kind of like a light switch. It's on or it's off.
Right.
And so I either love myself or I don't.
Yeah.
And I know that people believe that based even on the amount of messages I get saying, I don't love myself. It's like, yes, you do. You definitely do. What I'm hearing actually is you want to love yourself more. And I think that by teaching people that self-love is the byproduct of your relationship with yourself, you start to open up the possibility that you can increase the amount of love you have for yourself by improving the relationship you have with yourself.
Right.
And instead of saying, how do I love myself? Say, how do I have a better relationship with myself? And I think that there's a lot of things that go into that. So are you familiar with the 5 love languages?
Yes.
Right. So for people listening, the 5 love languages are acts of service, words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, and gifts. And these are, we give and receive love differently. Each person has different strengths in terms of their love languages and how they perceive love. And so I think about the strongest relationships that we have in our lives. Those are going to have more of those love languages in them consistently over time. And then when we think about our relationship with ourselves, are we using that same lens? Are we looking at how do I give more of this love language to myself? Oh, I actually feel as if my words of affirmation to myself are not strong because I'm constantly talking shit about myself.
Right.
I'm constantly saying negative things and judging myself. And so how would you feel about someone in your life that constantly told you you're not good enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not smart enough, you're going to fail, people think you're stupid? If someone's saying that to you all the time, it's probably going to not be the greatest relationship or one where you feel the most amount of love that you could. And yet we do that all day, every day to ourselves and then expect to feel like we're supposed to love ourselves. And so just breaking it down into how is your relationship to yourself? How can you improve that on a day-to-day level? That's how you're going to fall in love with yourself. And by falling in love with yourself, you're now going to have the type of relationship where you'll know how to take care of your own heart.
Yeah.
Right. So that you've been through it, right? So you said you had a long relationship from 23 to 33, is that?
Yeah.
So I'm sure people are going to be curious. So what was it for you? Like, what did you have to improve on to kind of be on your own and detach from that situation after such a long period of time?
So I dropped into a really deep depression. A lot of things all culminated at the same point in time. The 10-year relationship ended. I had just made a bunch of money, and I was figuring out what to do about that.
Right.
And I was now traveling fully nomadic, which I still am. It's been 6 years from that breakup to now. I'm still a full nomad. I was making a reality show about the breakup. Called The Art of Choosing Love, which I put out on YouTube, which is, just spoiler alert, it's me crying all over the world in exotic locations.
Now I have to watch
I'll be able to relate to that.
It's literally, and so I was doing all these things, and then my poem went viral. You Are Who You've Been Looking For. And when it went viral, it was, we did 40 million views on that in 48 hours. So
That's amazing.
It was
really
a whole thing. And so I started to get thousands of messages from people, and they were saying, I don't know how to love myself. Help me. I'm suicidal. I'm going through a divorce. I'm depressed. And what happened was I realized, or I believed, that I was a fraud because all of these people saw a poem about self-love.
Right.
And then were coming to me for, well, what do I do now? And I realized I didn't have an answer.
Wow, that's so relatable.
And it led me into a really deep depression. And it took me more than a year to make it through that. And it was really dark for a while. And so during that time, I think whenever we're going through something really difficult, really challenging, that's where the universe is giving us an opportunity to decide what we actually believe. What do you truly believe? Oh, you believe in the law of attraction, or you believe in God, or you believe in whatever those are. When you're really challenged, that's the opportunity to take action based off of what you really believe. And that's how we build the gnosis in our bodies of what is true for us in this lifetime. And so when going through that, I kept coming back to this belief about, one, the law of attraction,
right,
which means that the energy that I'm putting out is going to come back to me. So I didn't want to be putting out posts on social media about being depressed all the time. Like,
right.
I didn't want to interact with people when I felt so bad. And then two, I believed self-love was the answer. I did. I just didn't know how, but I did believe that it would all come down to self-love. And so what that meant was every day I would wake up and I would refuse to turn on my phone until I shifted my energy from where it was into a higher vibratory state. And I didn't know how to do that, but I knew of things that I thought were self-love actions. And so I just started taking those every day. So journaling, meditation, singing, dancing, baths, saunas, going on runs, exercise, weightlifting, breath work. And I just made that commitment to myself. And some days it took me between 3 and 4 hours. I literally was just doing that stuff, one thing after another, for 3 to 4 hours before I ever felt a shift to turn my phone back on.
Wow.
And so, you ask, it was all of it.
Okay.
And it was, and in that process, I realized, oh, I'm getting to know myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually holding myself and nursing myself back through this process, and starting to listen. One of the biggest problems that we have right now on the planet is that people are not able to hear themselves.
Yeah.
Because
It's true.
in every moment they're alone, they're on their phones, they're turning on Netflix, they're filling it with music, they're filling it with whatever that is. But the ability to just sit in silence so that you can hear yourself is something that society is losing by all of the phones and things.
Oh, it's become toxic.
Oh, it's so tough. And so if you can't hear yourself, how will you ever know how to show up for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And so just sitting in the silence so that you can be with your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions is a huge starting point. And then you can start to add the things that say, hey, I want to move my body right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, that's true. Instead of just saying, I should move my body, saying that's what my body wants right now. That's what I'm being told. So we have to develop that ability to converse with ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny that you say it because it's the truth. Because I'll tell you I was just telling Ashley yesterday, like I have a very hard time meditating. I just, for some reason, I don't know if just my mind is just running rampant all the time, or I just can't settle myself down enough to do it. But I'm going to try it again. But the biggest moment for me in the day, like what helps me get started, is I'm up at 5 a.m. and literally sitting outside with a cup of coffee where it's just completely silent. It's when I get my best thinking done for everything. So I agree with you. It's amazing how those things help you self-reflect and just kind of look at everything that you have to do in your life, in your day. And you're right. I think those things are extremely important for people. I think people struggle with getting there, though.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard for them, most people.
And I think it's also important to look at what your intentions are with meditation. There's a lot of different types of meditation, right?
Yeah, well, fill me in. Because...
Well, when you say I struggle to meditate, my mind's going so fast. For example, that might be the reason why you want to do meditation, is your mind's moving so fast that you want to train it to settle and train it to focus. So
Correct.
Why would you do a meditation focusing on like a TM meditation where you have a mantra like Om and you're just doing that over and over, is to train your mind on how to focus. So I'll go through periods of my life where I'm incredibly distracted. I have so many things, and realize I need to actually get my mind retrained on how to focus on a singular thing. So when I'm on my computer typing away on my newsletter, I'm not, let me jump to this, and I'm just seeing it happen. And so that might be the time where I'm using that type of meditation. There are other types of meditation where you're going to need to shift your vibratory signature for like manifestation meditations, right? You're like, okay, I want to visualize and feel myself in the reality in which I've already accomplished this thing that I'm calling in, so that I enter into my day with the right neurological pathways firing in order for me to accomplish that. And so that's a different type of meditation.
Right.
And then there's other types of meditation where you're just watching. You're just paying attention to all the thoughts that come up. But there's a difference between meditation and contemplation. Those are two different things. So it sounds like you spend a lot of time in contemplation.
I do spend a lot of time in contemplation, for sure.
Yeah. And so just deciding why do you want to meditate? Because you've been told it's good, or is there like an actual intention behind it? And then what type of meditation could be beneficial?
Yeah, for me, the intention is definitely bringing my mind races constantly. I mean, listen, I'm very busy too. I have a lot going on. So sometimes I look for an escape from it. And since I can't take time, I really can't take vacation a lot. And I can't find the escape that I need. So sometimes, I just wake up and I think I just need I try to bring it down as many notches as I can. And I struggle with it because what happens inevitably is the next thought comes in and I just can't seem to block them out. And I've always been very success driven. So, and for me, whereas you might meditate or some people meditate to kind of, like you said, manifest a certain path. For me, it's always been about working to it constantly, just executing the next goal and just continuing to drive forward. And I just don't know how to do it any other way. So I struggle with it a lot. And now it's all I know.
I just don't see where there's a conflict between those things.
So
Like, where's the conflict between the meditation and then accomplishing a lot? So the lowest effective dose of meditation based on studies is 12 minutes.
okay.
It's not actually something where you need to block out. The idea that you need to block out the thoughts that come in, and you, like, if you have a thought that's a problem,
Right.
is actually not how the human mind even works,
Okay.
right? It's like passing clouds in the sky is the metaphor that's often used. It's a thought comes like a cloud and you just acknowledge it and like, okay, and you come back to your breath. And it's, oh, here's that emotion. Oh, here's that thought. Here's the part of me. And mine is, you could be more productive right now. That's the thought that consistently comes up in a meditation.
Right.
And just notice it and okay, come back to breath. And so 12 minutes is the lowest effective dose. And so if you can just start with 12 minutes, you'll get the neurological benefits that will last for your whole day.
Wow.
And
That's
so
amazing.
I don't think that there's a conflict between, I'm sorry, I'm just hearing a story that somehow there's like these two things can't coexist. It's like
Right.
you can meditate effectively for 12 minutes a day and crush the hell out of your day and be incredibly productive.
That's good. I think a lot of people too are afraid of their own thoughts. Like they avoid it because they're afraid of sitting in the emotion that comes with the thought. I know that's like for me, and I'm definitely getting better with therapy and things like that. It's helping a lot, like learning to sit in the emotion instead of like pushing it away or like distracting myself. But so many people and myself as well, like even a couple years ago, I had no idea how horribly I was thinking of myself or about myself or how harsh I was in judging myself. And I still remember just 2 years ago, the first time that I ever looked in the mirror and said, I love you. Like I had never done that. I thought that was weird because I grew up in a very religious family where self-love is not really a thing. It's like you're worthless. Like you're nothing without God or Jesus and all these things. So I thought self-love was like a bad thing. And I remember looking at myself and saying, I love you, and like holding my hand on my chest. And it just felt so wrong. Like it felt so not true, And then I really started learning to sit and think, like you said, letting the thoughts come in. And I noticed they were just not. I was like, well, of course it doesn't feel right to say I love you because I'm not loving myself. These thoughts are not loving thoughts. And the way that I was able to learn how to sit in the emotion of it and the discomfort of that and just say I love you anyway and say positive thoughts anyway until they became true was like, it was so hard, but so rewarding, I think, I don't think, I know. It was just like, it's like the most rewarding thing I've done, I think, my whole life because I have so much more grace for myself and I actually do really love myself now. And even on the days that I'm not maybe physically doing things to love myself, I still feel love for myself,
It's amazing for you. It is that you were able to find that for yourself.
Well, and it's hard, the way you grew up it really has an impact on that. And that's, what I try to help people because they're always, reaching out to me the same thing, just like, how do I love myself? And I'm like, I don't exactly know, but this is what has been working for me and maybe it'll help you too, So
yeah, I think the thing that connects all of us is that self-judgment.
Yeah.
Right? We
sure.
all have that thing and we're all judging ourselves and I had a similar thing happen last year or two, within the last 2 years of just realizing my self-talk is incredibly negative. It was actually after my last breakup. Now I can remember I just realized I am really beating myself up every single day. Wow. And wanting to shift that and going through those periods of time. And I've done mirror work and all of these. And one thing that I will add that I think is incredibly important is most mental health illness is tied to the gut. And so a lot of people don't realize that your dysregulated and unbalanced gut microbiome, or your leaky gut, or these different things could be the vast majority of why you're having some mental health difficulties.
Really?
Wow.
Going all the way from, like me, being vaccinated and antibiotics and all of that stuff as a kid so much that it just destroyed my healthy gut flora and different things like that. And so for anyone listening to this, because that was a big part of me getting out of depression. It was not just these things we're talking about. It was also addressing the physical aspects of that. And so if you can start to regulate, you know, how many people have parasites and leaky gut and things like candida, just that will dysregulate your mental and emotional state. Most people don't even realize. Yeah, most people don't even realize that, like, your cravings that you get when you're like, "Ooh, I'm really craving that thing."
Right.
That the reason you might be craving that thing is because of a parasite in your gut, like candida, that is actually feeds off of sugar, for example. So why do you want sugar? To feed this consciousness that's in you that's saying we need this to survive.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of different avenues to it. And I always want to talk about somatic therapies. So actually doing therapies to move the energy that's been stuck out of your body, right? It lives in the fascia of your body in these different places, which is why sometimes when we're getting a massage or a trigger point, we can have a spontaneous release of energy. It lives in the body. And then also the gut is a huge factor for mental health.
Well, next time I have a chocolate craving, I'm going to the doctor. You know, so yeah, I didn't know that at all. But you know what I really want to ask you? So you're a very inspirational person. Everything you do, obviously, you could tell Ashley's very inspired. I'm very inspired by what I watch that you do. And for me, I was saying earlier on, what I've always been curious about is when I see someone like you who's as gifted as you are, especially with your words, and when you're that inspirational, it's the artistic process that's always been a curiosity of mine. How do you get yourself into a place where you just reach so many people so deeply? I mean, obviously you have to be sincere, right? Otherwise people just don't feel what you're saying. So yeah, how do you get yourself into that place? How do you find that connection with people the way that you do?
Well, thank you for the compliment sandwich in there. And yeah, you're going to love the Creative Path podcast. Really. Yeah. Because there's a lot of different people, a lot of different, and around the creative process. So just how do I reach people so deeply?
Right.
It's not even me is the thing. Is I'm utilizing a couple aspects, and one of them is art. I believe that art is a technology that bypasses the logical defense mechanisms of the human mind and immediately penetrates to the emotional body. No matter how shut down and hardened someone is, they still go to a movie because of how they think that movie is going to make them feel, or they put on music because of how the music makes them feel.
Right.
Right. And so art is that thing that will get right into, like we saw at the beginning, into someone's heart,
right,
and make someone feel right away. That's important because all true catalytic change from a personal development standpoint has an emotional component. It has to happen in a heightened emotional state. The reason is because when you're in a heightened emotional state, the blood flow in your brain shifts from your prefrontal cortex, where you have logical, rational thought, and it moves into your limbic and your amygdala, and this space where you are now programming the fight or flight mechanisms, the instinctual part of your brain that reacts immediately. That is programmed during heightened emotional experiences. And so art is bringing people into an emotional experience where you can now reprogram at such a deeper level. And whether that's like, we often associate that to when we're having a really difficult experience, a traumatic experience. But the most transformative things that change people's worldview are the deepest experiences of love and bliss, of having a first child be born, and the heart expands beyond anything that person has ever known. Those experiences also change the worldview and completely shift how we operate through the world. And so my poem going viral was about self-love. If I'm on stage just talking about it, I don't believe it ever goes viral. There's plenty of people talking about self-love on stages.
Absolutely.
What was it? It was because it was artistic.
Yes, for sure.
And so that is the way, if you want to reach people more deeply, tap into art as the modality to do that. There's a reason why art predates language. It is a thing that I think it truly is a modality and a technology. And then the next thing that people often ask me is, well, I'm not really artistic. And I say, absolutely you are. Art is just the expression of creativity into form. And so if you have some form of tangible expression that you have consciously said, I'm bringing my creative essence to this, that's art. And that can look like how you organize your closet.
Right.
That can look like the meals you prepare for your family. It can look a million different ways. It's just about the intention, because what happens when we look at creativity is simply the process of putting together patterns we've never put together before.
Right.
That's creativity. I'm putting together new patterns. And if it's poetry, it's new patterns of words. If it's music, it's new patterns of sounds, but it's just new patterns. And so guess what? That's also personal development. All we're doing when we expand our consciousness through personal development is putting together our experiences and our emotions into new patterns that give us some insight that changes how we view the past or the future. That's personal development. And so it's a creative process, how we expand our consciousness. And so I think that for me, I want to always inspire people and give people a place and encouragement to go out and make themselves be creative as a process. The process is the point, because if you can get better at pattern making and pattern recognition, your consciousness is going to expand exponentially, because that's the same thing. It's just a different medium.
I think that the creative part of myself is the most authentic part of myself, because it's the only thing I can do where I am fully 100% engaged in every part of my being, and also presenting it to the world without caring what anyone thinks, because it's an art, I'm not worried, am I going to be judged for this? Because it's who I am. It is what I am. It is what I feel. It is what I think. It is all of these things. And I know that this is how I connect with others. And so it feels the most authentic. There's no fear of judgment in that for some reason. And I feel like that with every artist. Like when you create, it's always beautiful. Like it's a beautiful thing that people can connect with no matter what. They're not coming from a place of judgment, for the most part. They're just acknowledging it. And whether it's a piece of, artwork, right. They're taking it in without judgment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think people struggle with that a lot though. I mean, I don't know why it's so hard for people to be authentic today. So, I mean, do you find that it's hard for people to be their authentic selves? I mean, I feel like I watch, I mean, I feel like you can never trust what you see on social media 100%. And I feel like people struggle for some reason with being authentic. And like Ash said, it is when people connect with you the most, is when you're your most authentic self. But I do feel like people have a very hard time with finding that space and being authentic to themselves and showing who they are genuinely. Do you find that a lot?
Yeah, I think we all have a fear of rejection, right? That is a normal human response. And again, I always like to ground things into different perspectives of why do we have a fear of rejection? Because a fear of rejection back in the day when we were tribal meant that you could be ostracized from the tribe, and that was essentially equivalent to death, right? So rejection meant death, and that's biologically ingrained into our DNA. And so that fear of rejection is not something to be ashamed about. Like that's the most important thing I want to get across to people. I feel fear of being rejected, sure, at different points, right? I come here and I go, well, I hope they like me. I hope in this conversation we leave and they like me, right? That's just a normal part. And so anyone who has that, you're human. Congratulations. Right. You're human. Here's confirmation. And putting yourself out there is a whole different level. And so I find that with art, it's even more of it's even more scary.
It's
to
vulnerable,
put
I would
your
imagine.
art out there,
Right.
because your art, as you were sharing, is the purest expression of your soul.
Yeah.
Right? Art, what is it that drives us? What is it that causes flowers to bloom or for me to breathe? What beats my heart? There is some life force, whether you want to call it spirit, God, love, whatever. There's a life force. And how does life force move through human beings and express itself? It's one of two ways. It's sexually or it's creatively. That is how we move through the world, utilizing that life force. And the only difference is what it's pointed at. Because when you see someone that you're attracted to and you feel that rush of life force, you call it a turn on.
Right.
When you are seeing a creative idea and you feel that rush of life force, you call it inspiration. But it's the same thing. And so the expression of our life force into tangible form is our creative expression, which is art. That's our soul signature being expressed. There's nothing more vulnerable than saying, this is my soul on display for you.
Wow.
And that's what makes romantic relationships so scary. And it's
Right.
also what makes sharing art so scary, for sure.
Like I was saying, I don't feel fear in sharing art anymore. I used to. However, relationships are a different story. But like any relationship just terrifies me. But
Well, can I ask, was that because you've shared it for so long?
it's because when I started sharing it openly, I was received so well. And I realized, oh my God, like this is actually a safe place for me to be vulnerable and real and authentic and open and honest. Like it's actually it's a beautiful thing because people are receptive to it. It was refreshing. So it was like the reward system in my brain was like, keep going, keep going. And there's nothing to fear. And of course, every once in a while you get negative things, but it doesn't even bother me. Like I just, because I know that like, this is me, this is the truest form of myself. And I think it's beautiful. Not everyone has to like it, but so many do. And it helps so many people. So it feels good to do, you know?
Yeah. And that's an important point that you just said, because you started in a place where you were worried about the judgment and the fear, and you got enough conditioning that it's actually safe and that people enjoyed it. And now you're at a place where it doesn't feel so scary. And that's similar for me. And I think anyone listening to this needs to know that if they're at the spot where it's incredibly scary, great. You can shift that. You have to get other experiences. It's why I have a community called the Create Community. And it's this online community where we support people in starting to share their message, at getting better at sharing their message.
That's awesome.
Because when you are first starting out, the only people who are following you online, the only people that can see it are your friends and family. And that's scarier in a lot of ways than complete strangers.
It really is.
And so having a community where you can share it safely and get feedback and be encouraged and motivated is a game changer. Because you need that conditioning. You need to hear that applause, even digitally, of, wow, you just shared something and it made me feel good. And thank you for sharing that. And the more that you get that, the more you'll be prepared to keep sharing.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of goes along too with what I was saying about like being fearful in relationships. I think the creative part of me, that is where I can connect with people and feel safe still. But in person, it's different. Like spiritually, it's easy, mentally it's easy, emotionally it's easy, but in person, connecting with someone in those ways is just very scary.
Why?
Because it's never been safe. Like because like I had said, I was a people pleaser and I always gave my heart away. I didn't know how to care for it after. And the fear of connecting with someone is really, really intense for me.
How long ago was it a marriage? It was a divorce?
Yeah, I got divorced 2 years ago.
Okay. Do you consider yourself single for how long? Because there's a period after a breakup where you're in the breakup process. You're not really single. You're right. So like, how long do you feel you've gotten to a place where you feel actually single and open to love again?
I'm not there yet.
Got it. Okay.
Like I am. I'm open to it, and I'm very single, but I don't know. I don't even know how to answer that because there was like a time frame in there where I was dating, and then it just kept hurting. And I'm not putting blame on other people. It was my own fault, right? For giving too much to people before it was either earned or received the way that, I needed it to be. But it reaffirmed that fear that I already had about myself, that being in relationship with me for whatever reason, I am always being pushed away. And it's whether I'm over giving or over loving and it like scares people. I don't know. I'm an all heart person. Like I want to know you heart, body, mind, soul. I want the whole thing. And so I just go in that way and people are like put off by it, I guess, or not ready. I don't know.
Because there's a pacing to it, yeah?
Yeah.
And I know for me that I would often want it all right up front.
Yeah.
And I thought it was romantic.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
in a lot of my poems, it's just this crazy love.
Yeah.
And part of my healing and growth was also recognizing that like what drove that, at least a percentage of it, was fear of being alone.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And a desire, a deep desire for the safety of a truly like life partner relationship and the feeling of fulfillment that I think I'll get from having kids and a family.
Right.
A lot of that was actually what was underneath me wanting to have it all right away.
Yeah.
I know that when I was single for the first time really in my adult life, that was something that I uncovered for myself. And I still walk that balance because I love deeply. Oh my gosh. I love love.
Yeah.
I love being in love.
Yes.
I love celebrating love.
Yes.
I love writing poems about love.
Yes,
And
exactly.
so
All of that.
these things. And how do I keep the romantic side of me that fuels so much of the wonder of life while simultaneously bringing a grounded, pragmatic approach to how you build a healthy, sustainable relationship?
Right.
That balance is a really tricky one, and
It
it's an
is.
individual one.
Like you said, when you're a deep lover, when you really love to love, it's hard. I mean, I struggle with it. I love to give. I love, like when I'm in, I'm 120% in.
Are you single?
And I'm single now, yeah.
Okay, got it.
But I was engaged, so I was with someone for 6 years. We separated maybe like 16 months ago now. And I just knew I wasn't in love with her. I couldn't spend the rest of my life with her. She was great. We actually we didn't grow up together. We were friends for about 20 years. But yeah, I'm always over the top, man. I have a very hard time finding that balance. And don't get me wrong, some girls love it. Some girls think it's a lot. But what happens is I feel like sometimes I get into a situation where it's only sustainable for so long to keep doing that so quickly. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is I don't give myself enough time to build with that person. So what happens is I get down the road and maybe I'm not as into them as I thought I was, you know, and that I struggle with a lot because if I had just slowed down a little bit, just gave myself time to kind of, like you said, pragmatically build something with somebody, maybe I wouldn't wind up in so many bad relationships throughout the course of my life. So yeah, it's hard. I find it really difficult to find that balance. I don't know how do you really find a balance like that when you like to dive so deep into relationships like that, or you have that comfort with somebody like that?
For me right now, I think that the balance for me is struck from just deep reflection of the patterns that we can see. I know how I have been, truly believing that it's an alchemy with the person that I'm with. And so the pacing of it is not something that I decide, it's something we decide. If it doesn't feel good to one of us, that may be the sign that it's not actually the right relationship.
Right.
Because someone might need to go really, really slowly. And it doesn't matter whether that's because of wounding or trauma or just because of how they desire it. And someone else might want to be moving much faster. Maybe they're just a desire to start a family much quicker. And that's like a really big thing. So I want to move faster. And so that matching up, the timing, the speed, the pacing is something that I know in my next relationship, I'm taking in this mindset that we co-create that.
Right.
Yeah.
So all I need is self-awareness of what has been
Right.
mixed with an openness to co-creating the speed. And I think those are the two ingredients that will lead to at least the best chance.
Right. At a
Yeah.
successful
No, that's good.
relationship.
That's
Yeah,
so
no,
true.
it is good. It's just, it's so hard sometimes.
It is hard.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
It really is. It's,
Believe me,
it's not an easy thing
I
to
have
do.
a line of my poem that says, "Give me daydreams of our future children after only knowing you for a week."
or day, you know,
what
whatever.
I mean? It's that level of I just, when especially I was in a period of time immediately after my last breakup where I still felt ready.
Yeah.
I went, this relationship
From
ended.
one to the next?
Well, this relationship ended, and previously in breakups, for example, there was one where I just got a cabin in the woods for 6 weeks, didn't see other human beings most days. I was naked, cold, plunging in a river. Like, it was just out amongst the trees screaming, right? Like, that was how I handled it. And I went into a cocoon, and that led to me making a commitment not to be in relationship for a year because I didn't want to be habitually entering into relationships.
Right, absolutely.
And so that's how I handled that one. This one I came out of and said, I'm actually ready. I am ready for that partnership. So can I heal while still staying open?
Yes, exactly.
And so that was the approach to the last breakup that I went through.
Right.
And so I think that for that process, one of the things that I saw was, I don't know if you know Erewhon out in Los Angeles. It's a whole scene. It's basically of a super high level gourmet grocery store, but like, it's a scene. You just go and people watch. And so I would sit there, and pretty much every beautiful woman that walked in, I went, is it her? You know what I mean? Like, could be this one.
Right.
She's beautiful. Maybe it's, and so suddenly I had this lens of moving through the world, wondering who was my queen.
Yeah.
And that is definitely not an attractive energy.
No, it's not an attractive energy.
And also it's unfair because even when meeting someone and having a connection, I'm evaluating them through a lens of a box that they need to fit into based off of something that I think I want, which is arguably not even going to be a thing I need.
Right.
And so it's a tricky one for sure.
It's tough,
and honest
man.
For sure.
It is. It's just like,
but we've all been there.
It feels hopeless sometimes, though. I mean, it genuinely does, because you want it so bad, and then you think you found it, and then you lose it, and you're like, "Fuck, man! I thought for sure. Like, what the fuck?" And then you start to look, like I said, you just start thinking, "What can I do differently?" To just build a relationship properly with someone. Like, when the fuck is it going to end? Like, when's the cycle going to end? Where we just find somebody that works with us?
Yeah.
Do you think that in today's day and age, with the online dating being so prevalent, with slide into the DM world happening so much, there's an idea that I've heard that really I resonate with around people don't stick through the difficult times anymore because of this belief that there's so many possibilities. All you have to do is swipe, and any of those could be your next relationship or your next lover. So when things get hard, in my parents' day and age, you just worked through it.
Yeah, we say that all the time. Right.
And now it's why would I deal with any fighting at all? Why would I do that? Because I can just go out and get someone else.
Yeah, nobody wants to work through the hard times anymore. Nobody.
One of the best quotes I've ever heard, which this wasn't pertaining to relationships, but I think it does with what you just said in social media, was T.D. Jakes, who's like a pastor. He said, we expect other people to be a finished product while giving ourselves the grace to evolve. And I was like, it's so true that we do, especially in romantic relationships. We're like expecting this person to show up as this idea that we have. And if they aren't measuring up to every single ideal that we have in our mind, well, like you said, this isn't my person. This isn't perfect, and there are a million other people. Why would I work through this when I can go over to Sally here, who's really peaceful all the time, which no one is perfect and no one is peaceful all the time.
Sally.
Except Sally.
Right.
Don't talk about Sally like that, because I can tell she's my person.
Sally's your queen. No, but it's the truth. And I think guys, men and women all do it. We do it. We're like, oh, well, I don't have to do this with you because, I can go over here and this person will be better. And then, of course, you go there and they're not either. And that you're like, oh, wait, they're imperfect too. Oh, shoot. Yeah. And then there's no self-awareness involved. But I just think that it's hard to know when is it worth it to fight through it with someone, and when is it not. Like, when do you say, okay, you know what, actually, we're going to work through these. I mean, I'm a worker through, I like communicating and all of that. It's like my jam, but not everyone is. And, but it's like, how do you know, is this the person I work through these things with, or is this truly not the right person for me?
That is the single hardest question.
It really is.
There is no answer. I have a line of poetry that says, every woman is a handful. You just need to find one that fits your hand.
Right. It's a great line. That's great.
And so I think that there's two schools of thought that I've seen emerge really in the relationship space. One is this idea that when you meet the person, it just works.
Yes.
Right.
It just works.
I
There's
even
a
am guilty of
flow,
saying that.
It flows.
Wouldn't that
There's
be
a
nice?
like that is how you know. It's not that you don't have conflict. It's just even how you navigate the conflict. It just works.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's one train of thought. And then this other school of thought is when you meet the right person, you're going to trigger the hell out of each other a lot in the beginning. But the energy of working through it, the amount of work that you do together to figure it out is ultimately how you build the bond that keeps you together.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there are some relationship experts out there that you can listen to who will say their marriage that they've been in for however long, the first 1-2 years was so hard and they broke up multiple times or fought so much.
Right.
But now the bond is stronger than ever. And
Yeah.
so there are two different schools of thought. And
Yeah.
so where I sit with it is, who knows? I don't think there is a right or wrong way. I think that, but I do think what I believe now is that you choose.
Yeah.
I think that I've been waiting for the universe to choose for me.
Yeah.
I've been waiting to be, oh, here it is.
Right.
Yes.
They're just going to hand it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately there's a level of you could create an incredible life with a bunch of people. There
Yeah.
are a lot
Absolutely.
of people. And you just have to pick.
Yeah. Which one?
You have to pick which one you want to go through the shit with. Which one are you willing to shed tears with? Which one are you willing to slam the door and walk back in it
Right.
with? Like, who is that person that, for whatever the reason is, you want to keep moving through life together? The
Yeah.
good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, like what I see is I think a lot today is I think people, men and women, when they're in relationships, you see a lot of relationships where people are taking what they need from the relationship, right? And they're not giving back to it. So I think you always need to be working to give back to the relationship, both of you, men and women. But I think some people get into it just to fulfill their need, like what they want from the relationship. And then the minute they stop getting that, they tap out of it and they give up. So I think both people need to always be working to keep the relationship strong and continuously giving to it. And if you're not, it's going to fail.
It's so funny. During this last breakup, I went to Colorado to go snowboarding by myself and, go to dinners by myself and sit at the bar at a restaurant, and sat next to this older woman who had been married however long, and we just get into a conversation, and she's asking me about my life and how I travel full time, and I said, I'm excited to settle down, and she's like, well, are you married? No, I haven't met that person yet.
Right.
And she goes, how long have you been traveling? And I said, 6 years. She goes, oh, now it's obvious. I go, well, what do you mean? What is so obvious? What is so obvious?
What am
Tell
I
me.
missing here?
And she goes, well, it's just obvious. You're running from something. I went,
Oh.
and the bartender literally goes, oh shit, this is getting deep.
Oh.
And like this woman that I don't know telling me I'm running from something.
Right.
And
Wow.
so where that leads, I went into a whole exploration for days about, am I running from
She
something?
really
What did
made
I
you
do?
think, right?
Well, I thought it was fair because God speaks in mysterious ways. So this woman could be an angel and delivering a message to me. And so I went home and I said, I like to play the game sometimes when I receive feedback that I don't agree with, to play the game. If it was true, then what? And so I wrote down, okay, if I was running from something, what
Right.
would I be running from? And I just play that game. And, but what I was getting to with that conversation was she had been married for, 30, 40 years. And I asked her, what was it that kept her relationship healthy? Because she seemed to be happily married. And she said, every day I wake up and think, how can I make this person better? Like, how can I
Right.
better their life? How can I help them become who they want to be and achieve their goals?
Wow.
And it's not about me.
Right.
Wow.
It's about them.
Absolutely.
And hopefully the person you marry is having the exact same thought.
That's how it
Yeah.
should be.
And so that really struck me. It struck a chord with me.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
It's the truth. You have to be. I've said that before. Like, you have to be able to depend. You want to give everything to the person that you love, right? And you need to have faith that they're going to give to you. So basically, I think everybody, like, you should be focused on the person that you love. Obviously, you want to love yourself, because it's hard to love somebody if you don't love yourself. But you want to look out for them, and you should look out for them. And then you need to have that person and have faith in them that they're going to get your back.
Yeah.
And I think if two two people are both doing that in a relationship, it should absolutely work. Short of you guys just not being meant for each other, I feel like that's what it means to be in a relationship with someone. I have your back, you have my back. We don't have to worry about the rest. Like that's it. It's you and me against everybody else.
That requires so much trust, and
it does.
That's what's scary.
Yeah,
like,
it's freaky. I know.
Coming back. Sorry, I know I keep coming back to this, but like
she's like, I'm still scared over here.
I am. Like,
it can be terrifying.
Well, because
I get it.
I am that. Like well, of course, I say that. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm delusional about what I am, but. And that's very likely. But I do feel like that's what I'm always doing and just not receiving. Like that sounds selfish, but like I do give whether I'm receiving or not. And so I've also gotten to the point now where I feel so much safety in being alone and doing things alone and having no companionship. I do everything alone, outside of like coming here and hanging out with this. When I'm back at home, my whole, other than my daughter, it's just me. Like I do everything alone and I feel safe in that. It feels really safe. Like I'm in my little bubble right now. And so putting my heart back on the line is so terrifying to me because I guess I don't trust. I guess I don't trust that there's someone out there that is going to do that.
I don't think you're being selfish. I think a lot of givers inevitably wind up with takers. Unfortunately, they just do. They work well together, right?
But I don't want to be jaded in that way either.
No, you shouldn't be jaded. But I wouldn't say you're being selfish. I think you've wound up with takers in your life, and it takes a lot out of you, especially when you're a giver to the degree that you are. It's draining, and it leaves a mark on you. It would leave a mark on anybody. So,
Adam, I need your counsel.
It's 11:11 right now. 11:11, just like the poem.
Yeah, there you
go. So what I'll say is I believe that trust is built over time.
Agreed.
And so I think that especially for women, man, what you have been through, every woman on this planet, what you have been through is so insane. I don't think most men can comprehend even just what it feels like to move through the world and have to fear for your physical safety on some degree. Just to everywhere you go is a different way of perceiving reality. And so my heart goes out to all of you women for just that level that I think that level of fear, concern, like in the collective knowing of what has happened to women throughout time and continues to happen. From that standpoint, I think it's important for the feminine to test the masculine. It's a normal thing, and have the masculine prove trust. Yeah. However, as someone who my last relationship ended in so many ways because she had made the commitment to never rely on the masculine. Mm-hmm. She literally was just, I am never going to have to rely on a man for money, for anything. I'm going to do everything on my own. And that led to her basically not ever being in a really long-term relationship her entire adult life. And so when it came time for us to begin our relationship, there was no trust there. There was a desire to trust, but there wasn't actually trust there. And then the lens became, where can I find the evidence that I can't trust? Yeah. And that's a different way of testing. Yeah. To give a man a test that you're hoping he passes is a very different feeling than giving a man a test and me knowing that no matter what I do, you're going to be looking for the flaws or the evidence that supports the idea that I can't be trusted. Yeah. And I think a lot of men on this planet feel as if we are being tested in games that we can't win. Yeah. And so I have no desire to be in that. I lose all incentive to show up for you because it is a lose-lose for me. And so I think that there's a combination of the initial slowing down to make sure this is a man I want to actually build with, who all the evidence suggests that, okay, this is a safe person for my heart. And then I'm going to give little by little by little more and more and more of me. Yeah. And I think that another thing that I get from female friends of mine who share this with me is this desire to have a certain level of commitment early on. Yeah. And I've experienced this in the dating world. There's this like, I need to know where this is going before we ever blank, 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 blank. Whether it's
Yeah.
have sex or it's this or that. And for me, I'm sitting there going, I need to have more experiences with you before I can commit to you. Like, what are you talking about? And there's this level of archetypally, there's the men desire freedom, women desire security.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the freedom and security can still be found within a relationship. So men and women still want the relationship. And I think how we find our way there and the pacing is really important, because when you say to me on date 2, 3, 4, whatever, that there's a certain level of commitment that you need. And I'm going, I mean, we haven't even slept together yet.
Right.
And so that is, again, this pacing of, are we the right fit? Because
Right.
some women listening to this are going, I'm not even sleeping with a man until I have that commitment. And that's fair. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not committing to a woman if I don't even know we have great sex.
Right.
Like, what are we talking about? So
Right.
True.
yeah,
Very
so
true.
that balance is just one that I think when you meet the person, you know that it's not that they're the person, but you know, this is someone that I want to find out if they're that person.
Yeah, that's good. It's worth the risk, because at the end of the day, even if it does lead in, heartache, at least you have, a bunch of creative poems that you can write from it,
Well, I don't think I've never regretted falling in love.
Nah, right,
And
right.
I don't think anyone ever regrets pursuing love, except when they're in the breakup or they're in the
that's
loss
true.
of it. When you're in it, it feels awful. You're never going to do it again.
sucks.
Yeah.
But when you look back, when you've actually gone through that healing process and you look back, you don't ever regret it.
Yeah.
No.
You never regret it.
It's an
And
amazing
so,
feeling.
Yeah. So we can look throughout history at everyone. If you regret pursuing love, it's because you're still so hurt and there's more healing to do. But once you've done that work, you never look back and regret it. And so when you're in that fear place of the next relationship on the horizon, I think it's important to remember that.
So
Yeah,
let me
that's
ask you a question. I think you're a good guy to ask this question. Some people think I'm crazy.
Here we go.
No, it's more of like, I'm very big on, like, my relationships just with my friends, my family, even women that I've dated, right? I always say I've had one really toxic relationship my whole life. Okay. She was just a rancid individual. She always was. And but other than that, the times I was always at my best in life, and I can say this undoubtedly, was with the women that I dated in my life. For some reason, I always dated women that have brought out the best side of me. Whether or not we were meant to be together or not is one thing, but they had always brought out the best side of me. So for me, I actually have relationships, like friendships, with quite a few of my exes. And people think I'm nuts because they're like, well, it's going to cause conflict, which it never has, because most of the girls I'll date, I'll explain that to them. I don't see the sense, like if I have 6 years with someone, 5 years, like life is short. Like if I have a bond with somebody, I don't want to throw it away. And if a friendship can be maintained out of that, I do it. People think I'm nuts for that. They think that that's the craziest thing. And I'm like, why? Why would you want to throw that much of your life with somebody away if you don't have to do it? If you can maintain a friendship after the fact, as long as it doesn't affect your life one way or the other way, why wouldn't you hold on to that? Do you think that's nuts to want to hold on to that companionship with someone?
Well, what level of friend? There's a lot of levels of friendship.
No.
So like, are you talking to them regularly, or you're just saying we left on friendly terms? So if we ran into each other, we'd say hi.
Two I talk to regularly, and then there's two that I talk to. We touch base a couple times a year. Just nothing crazy. But yeah, two I do talk to regularly.
I think it's beautiful when you can have a friendship with an ex. I think that should be something that we strive for, if possible. I think it's really only possible if it's a mutual breakup. I think if one person still has feelings and it's ended by one of the other people, then what ends up happening is those unresolved, like that person was still in love with you when it ended.
Right.
So maintaining a relationship, I think is more difficult. But I think if it's a mutual thing and you just say, okay, it's time, we can both see that, great. I think that then it's much more likely and possible to make that work. And I think it's really valuable because assuming that you respect their opinions, assuming that you think they're an amazing person, they know you so well.
That's the
they
thing.
become a really valuable asset to your life and a mirror for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's what it is. I think it's hard to let go of people that know you that well, especially if you have a good relationship with them and you just weren't meant for each other. But
when my 10-year relationship ended, it was mutual, and we were able to maintain a friendship for a while.
For a while. Not forever.
Well, now we need to know what happened.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, once someone else came into the picture in her life,
right,
and wasn't so thrilled about it, there was kind of a choice point that she had to make.
Yeah,
and
it's fair though. I guess.
Yeah.
So
that usually it happens.
No, I get it. Listen, it's been a problem for me in the past, but yeah, oddly enough, unfortunately, I've been able to hold on to it. But yeah, some people think I was just curious as to what your opinion is.
If you can do it, great.
Right.
I'm able to do that with women more that I haven't gone really deep into a year plus of relationship.
Right,
If it's
fair
just
enough.
3 weeks or 3 months or
Right.
whatever, I do really well in maintaining friendships after that.
I want to read something of Adam's.
Uh-oh.
And I want to find out more about this, but I'm going to read it first. This is like one of the posts you made.
Camera's on you.
November 24th.
Read it in my really
2023.
deep voice, though.
That was the day before my birthday. Okay. You said, I woke up early this morning and I felt myself struggling. Does this sound familiar?
Every day.
Right. It's every
Was
day
this
of my
yesterday? Did I
life.
post this? Wait a minute.
I felt disconnected and lonely. My heart felt heavy and I wanted to numb out with social media, sugary foods, and substances. But I sat in it. I allowed myself to feel those desires like children throwing a tantrum, and I released them. And I felt the pain that my mind was trying to avoid. I cried. I pounded my pillow. I released. On the other side of this, I found peace. I felt pride. I knew that I was a little bit stronger. I recognized that I was expanding my capacity to be with discomfort. And I solidified a new habit for how I choose to deal with difficult times. This is how we grow. These little moments, these unseen mornings, I celebrate with all of you working on this now. So let's talk about that struggle and the place you were in that moment and what led you to working through it to the other side.
Yeah. So in that time period that I was going through a really tough depression, I was telling you 3 or 4 hours. There's one moment that really sticks with me still, where I came home from dinner. You know that feeling your skin is crawling? It's just, and you go, I am so uncomfortable in my own body right now.
Yeah.
And so I had that moment and I was sitting on the couch and I just decided to close my eyes and really pay attention to that feeling. I could see, with my eyes closed, I could see exactly where my phone was on the table in front of me and the desire to just get on it and start scrolling. And suddenly I was like, no. And then my mind could see all the snacks in the cupboard that I had. And I was going through each of them going, what about this? What about this? And I went, no. And I could feel the desire to scream and shout. And I could just feel all these different activities that my body wanted to do or my mind was telling me. And it was strong. I just sat in it. And I said, I'm not moving until it's gone. And I just sat in it. And it was probably 20 to 30 minutes of just sitting there and paying attention to how uncomfortable I was.
Yeah.
And then there was a point where I realized I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die. It's kind of lessened its stranglehold on me. Now, what do I want to do? And I thought, I want to dance. And so I put on music and I just danced by myself for a while. I love to dance. I think that the success that we have in life in pretty much every area will be directly correlated to how comfortable we can be in the discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time you want to learn something new, it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you step out of your comfort zone to trust someone again, or to open your heart, or to start sharing your message online, or whatever it is, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And most people feel unable of sitting in the discomfort. And yet at the same time, that ability to just be with it is the thing that tells us we'll be okay when shit really does get hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that skill, because it is a skill, you're going to be okay. If you just sit in and feel it, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I want people to understand the only difference between us is I'm doing the thing that they're not willing to do.
Right.
I'm sitting in the same feelings they're having too, and I'm just willing to sit in them. And then instead of leaning into coping mechanisms, I'm going to do something like dance, or I'm going to meditate. It's not that you got a bad hand and suddenly you can't do it.
Right.
This is something that you will have to teach yourself and be willing to do over and over and over again. And other people have it worse, other people have it better, whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is that what's hard for you is hard for you.
Yeah.
And the only way what's hard for you becomes easier for you is to do the hard thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that is the only thing separating you from what you want.
Yeah.
It's true. It's very hard to become successful in life unless you're comfortable doing uncomfortable things. It's the only way you can do it. You don't want to get up out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, but you have to do it, right? You don't want to go ask your boss for a promotion, but you deserve it, right?
You don't want to meditate for 12
you don't
minutes.
meditate, but you should, right? So it's being able to get through those uncomfortable situations that inevitably will drive your success. You know, if you just want to be stagnant and you're going to stay in your comfort zone forever, you can't go. You're at that point. You're just trying to prevent yourself from going downhill. Right, you're just stagnant,
and this comes full circle to developing the ability to really listen to yourself.
Yeah,
because most of the time when you pick up your phone and you're scrolling, suddenly you don't even realize that you picked it up because there's something under the surface that's making you uncomfortable. And the moment that there's some stillness or silence, you start to feel uncomfortable. Yeah. And that feeling of discomfort is a trigger to smoke the cigarette. It's a trigger to have the glass of wine. It's the trigger to pick up social media or eat the sugar or whatever it is that's not supporting you. That's the thing. And it happens so unconsciously. And the only way that you're going to break that cycle is to develop conscious awareness of, oh, I'm feeling that feeling right now.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, here's that thing. Oh my God, I want to pick up my phone. Okay. Am I going to do that? No.
Right.
Just developing that awareness, you have to learn how to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
That's the starting point.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, it's a skill set. It is a skill set. I wholeheartedly believe that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's one that a lot of people don't possess or just don't want to take the time to hone.
Well, it's hard.
It
Emotionally,
is hard.
too.
It is very hard.
Like mentally, it is a mental thing, really. I mean, the physical part's the easy part, honestly. You know?
Well, it's funny because when we go to work out, we expect it to be hard because we know that the resistance is what makes us stronger.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the stronger you get, the more resistance you put on the bar.
Yeah.
And so in physical, we get that. And yet when it comes to mental and emotional, suddenly we want it to be easy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard. The fact that it's so hard is the very thing that's going to make you stronger.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And so developing a new relationship to what hard even means, I think is important.
Yeah,
there is a disconnect for sure. You're right. In the mental, there is a disconnect with it. Absolutely. But so let me ask, so just as a kind of like final thought, what is, with what you do on your platform with your poetry, what is if you wanted anything from your viewers, what message would you like them to take from what you do, from your artistry?
What I'm constantly working to remind people is that they can fall in love with life. They can live a life that they really desire. And that, to me, starts with so much of what we've been talking about, but knowing that it's even possible.
Cool.
I think that one piece, knowing that it's possible to create the life that you want, is the fundamental starting point. Because if you don't even believe it's possible, then you're never going to try.
Yeah.
And so that's why I share as openly as I do. And that's why I put it into poetry to deliver those. A lot of my poems are about some of the deepest heartbreak. I don't know if you've heard my new album, The Journey Back to You. It's on Spotify, and it's the journey from breakup to breakthrough and then to you, which is finding myself and love again. So much of what I write about is rooted in pain and the journey of finding myself. And I do that because I want people to understand that where I'm at is the result of hard work and intention and consistency over time.
Yeah.
It's not magic.
Yeah.
I've had my struggles. I've had my darkness. I face off with them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so most people are dancing with their demons every day. And how we create separation from them is through habits that are hard.
Yeah. That's good.
And that's my message for everyone. And I also root that in creativity, because I believe that creativity holds the answer, because your creativity is your pure life force. And so if you are not tapped into your creativity, you are not cultivating your life force. And there's no act of self-love more powerful than saying my soul's worthy of expressing itself in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It
It's
absolutely is.
Let us know what you thought about the episode. Let us know what you thought about Adam. You can check out Adam on IG at adam.roa. You can check out his new podcast, the Creative Path Podcast, on Spotify, YouTube for video, and you can also check it out for audio on Apple Podcast and Amazon Music. Also, check out the Create community, and Adam's going to give you a little bit about it.
The Create community is a space for people who want to start sharing their message, and we have a brand building program within that for people who are already sharing and really want to build their personal brand to a place where they can monetize it and start earning a living through sharing the valuable messages that they have.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. As always, please continue to give us your feedback. You know we love and appreciate it. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you, guys.